In the past 2 months, people have been talking about how the stablecoin race is now real. This has been going on since Ripple posted that the stablecoin race is on near the end of 2022. But we can now see how much the US has sped up the race because of what it has been doing. On top of that, we see a few other things happening outside of the US that might make the US step it up even more. For example, Hong Kong really wants to be the best at crypto by 2026. Officials there have said they want to be the world leader in crypto asset management in the next 2 years. And on August 1, a rule on stable coins will be in place. Relying on that over making that Hong Kong isn't the only place we heard about that was trying to make crypto laws stricter. For example, many countries want to become Bitcoin hubs, but they can't until they start to really open up the markets. The best way to do this is to make jobs and rules clear for things like stablecoins. The US's Genius Act, which makes set coins legal, is starting to get the support it needs. This is great to see and shows that the US is moving things along faster, but it also puts a lot of pressure on these other countries, which is why Hong Kong wants to lead in this area. I'm really glad about this because it will speed things up even more in the US. Now we know that August is also the month when this stablecoin bill needs to be issued to be fully passed along with the market structure bill that we're going to talk about. But it's official now. We're glad to see that the regulatory race is getting harder. Another thing is that crypto keeps getting more attention in the US. For example, the head of federal housing in the US said that they would look into how stocks of cryptocurrencies can be used to qualify for mortgages and other loans. This is a big deal because there are a lot of people with a lot of crypto who keep getting turned down for things they don't qualify for. What's crazy is that these places would qualify if they looked at crypto stocks. This is very exciting to see, and I think it's a very good sign that the US market is actually Paul Gruel, the head lawyer at Coinbase, said that using crypto as mortgage security probably isn't worth much. This means that the US is getting more involved with crypto these days. People are taking it a lot more seriously than they did in the past. We already know that crypto was the number one enemy for a while. But before that, there were joke coins, which were crypto-based coins that were meant to be funny. People thought that crypto was just internet magic money, but now it's really becoming an important part of the US and even the world's banking systems. Big banks are using Bitcoin, which makes up at least 1% of M2 money. Other big banks are starting to join because Bitcoin is now accepted by the big leagues. The Director of Federal Housing in the US has given the go-ahead for people to use cryptocurrency stocks to get mortgages, which is very important. On top of that, Coinbase's VP of Legal had the chance to speak in front of the Senate Banking Committee as they begin to work on a joint market structure lag for digital assets. We passed the Genius Act in a historic vote that included members of both parties less than a week ago. I'm glad to see that this problem is now a priority in both the House and the Senate, and that lawmakers from both parties are working to solve it together to protect customers, encourage innovation, and create economic opportunities. Yes, this is very exciting because the US is starting to really step on the gas and get things going. This is a great sign of what's to come after that. To go over a poll girl again, we have not tomorrow, not next week, not in 10 years. We need market system laws right now. Tomorrow, Ryan Van Drake will make the case for Coinbase to the Senate. We are grateful for the chance. Listen up, we need to finish this. Okay, crypto's been held up for too long. Crypto was struck when Gary Gendler was in charge and when Biden was in charge in what I already said was the biggest threat. Additionally, it's important to note that the Federal Reserve is no longer responsible for image risk, which makes it easier for crypto banks to do business. The fact that big banks are now trying to get into crypto in some ways is a very good sign. Banks have been very interested in stablecoins lately, especially since the beginning of the year. Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan Citi, and Deutsche Bank are just a few of the big banks that are now looking at stablecoins very closely. This is exactly why the market is real opening up for the big banks to start using cryptocurrency, putting together the ideas for its own crypto market structure bill. The subcommittee meeting next week, which will be led by Senator Loomis, will be all about these ideas. Tim, as I told you yesterday, Scott wants to hold a full committee hearing within the next month, most likely after the discussion draft comes out. Well, we made some progress today when we had a meeting at 3:30 p.m. to talk about bipartisan legislative models for the structure of the digital asset market. We also had witnesses from Coinbase, Multicoin Capital, and the University of Pennsylvania Wharton School. By the way, Ryan was talking about this very thing over here. We love seeing him take part in these. Really deep talks. Also, the banking GOP wants to release principles, which are a summary of the bill's main ideas and ideals, either later today or tomorrow before the bill's subcommittee hearing tomorrow. This is a very important issue that needs to be carefully looked at because it'll have a huge impact on the market. As we've already talked about, as soon as there are rules, all the doors will open for crypto. I also think that a lot of money from banks, Wall Street, and other big players will pour into crypto. The market will also become more open so that DeFi services can be added to standard bank accounts like Yield once we have rules in place. There are a lot of options here. Back in April 2024, Nellie Liang, who is Under Secretary for Domestic Finance at the U.S. Department of Treasury, and representatives from Ripple and Stellar were at a roundtable discussion. During the discussion, they talked about a number of topics. Firstly, they talked about the technical and legal requirements for improving the old features of central bank money and what this might mean for consumers, investors, and businesses. They also talked about the long-term goals for adding stablecoins, tokenization, and CBDCs to the U.S. banking system as a whole, as well as the possible benefits for economic growth and stability. Now, it's 2025, and guess what? It's interesting that some people like Scott Bessant are now really behind stablecoins, but now that we think about it, Ripple was already at this meeting with other big players like Stellar, Circle, and I think Chainlink, in fact. Ripple has been there the whole time.